Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Citywide Frontrow.
Take a seat.
Take a seat.
Take a seat.
This is our pastoral tagline
man.
to this thing.
You are
Citywide
here.
Front Row. Take a seat.
It's happening.
Listen, we are here. We out here, as my wife likes for me to say. So we're super excited to be starting this YouTube channel. We shared this a little bit on our podcast as well, but I've been harping on this statistic. I can't get it out of my head that I once heard recently that 500,000 times a month someone YouTube searches how to study the Bible.
That's a lot.
And then some of those results are good and some are not so good when you look at it. And now I just couldn't get it out of my head to think, man, there's so many people trying to get discipled online. I recently read a story about why people become atheists. And the number one answer that they got doing all this research in this article that I was reading, which would be great if I could reference it right now, but I cannot remember for the life of me, was that people from small towns or from anywhere are engaging with this content online on YouTube, and they're not learning from their peers. They're not even being taken away by the world necessarily, but they're learning all these thoughts from these really smart people about why you shouldn't believe in God and different things. And so we're super excited to get on here, not knowing exactly what the Lord wants to do with it. But as we talk about all the time, you're always being discipled. And so we just want to provide another avenue for you and for us to input good spiritual thinking into our lives, for us to engage with one another as a community. So one of the big parts of this show will be for you to be able to ask questions about what we're teaching Thursday nights, about what's up with Citywide, or just any pastoral question. We're going to engage, chop it up, and answer it here. And we just want to provide a place to help you think through your life spiritually, for us to engage about the Bible and cultural topics, and just to provide another outlet for you to input spiritual mindedness, godliness, Jesus stuff into your mind, to your heart, for you to do this wherever you're at, whenever. And so we hope it benefits a Citywide people, but also those who have been a part of Citywide, any young adult in the DC metro area, and hopefully anyone around the world who might find this helpful. So we're here. We're ready to roll.
Yes.
Episode numero uno.
We out here.
We out here. Take a seat.
This is it.
Take a seat. I am joined. So I'm Nate Crew.
I'm Taylor Antone.
And I'm John OVERFLOW.
We are the Tres Amigos, my friends.
This is what you see.
All right. So the first thing we want to do, as we're kind of thinking through ways to engage with you guys and things that might be helpful, is do a review on Thursday night and think through a summary, if you missed it, about what John was teaching from John 18. And then we'll answer some questions and reflect on some specific content. So,
Babe, do you want to give us a review of
Sure,
That's right,
sure.
Babe, that's right.
John 18?
I might need to clarify the
The
reference.
Babe. So for those of you who
Babe
missed
reference.
it, you need to watch the Citywide video, or either online or the podcast for John's message. He accidentally texted his girlfriend's mom, and she called him Babe. It was great.
You spoiled it.
Yeah,
You spoiled it for everyone.
It wasn't as funny that way.
It's
either.
not as funny anymore.
You
Well,
ruined
I
it.
was trying to summarize. I was trying to be
There you go.
quick about
There
it.
you go.
I was trying to be quick.
All right.
John 18, John.
Give us a summary.
Will do. Man, the funny thing is, everyone keeps calling me that now. So
Babe?
yeah, like the night after Citywide, I stopped at Silver Diner to get some food, and me not knowing, there's 15 or 20 of the peeps from Citywide there.
Guys
They
all
love
go to Silver Diner?
Citywide
Yes.
loves Silver Diner.
It's the worst.
I know. Hey,
It's the best restaurant ever.
it is good for fellowship. There you go. But yeah, they were like, hey, the whole restaurant basically heard him. And when I came in, they were like, "What's up, babe?" And Anthony Opalencia was probably the guy who
Who's the worst?
Who was the worst at it, man. But I loved him to death. But anyway, John 18. This is probably one of the most sobering texts I had to teach. I had to
get
teach.
closer.
I gotta get closer to Mike. I'm sorry, Andre.
Kiss
I'm
it.
looking at you right now. I'm sorry. Anyway, John 18, probably one of the most sobering texts, because it really deals with Jesus suffering prior to the cross, and how he was faithful in the midst of it. So just through the text, we saw that Jesus knows what it's like to be betrayed. He knows what it's like to be left alone. He knows what it's like to not to be denied by his loved ones, and all these things, to the point where in a lot of these sufferings he was faithful. in light of being rejected, being denied, he was loyal to his flock. And in light of being discouraged like this, he stayed faithful to God and to his mission, and by exposing his power. He was authentic and open and consistent with his gospel message all throughout his ministry in light of the societal pressures that's going on, which in a lot of ways I hope has been an encouragement for me and for everyone to be faithful, knowing God is faithful, because he knows what you're going through at this moment, because he suffered more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
that's good.
I was even thinking, so the flip side of all of those statements true. He was alone so that we could not be alone.
Yeah.
We have a biblical community. God did not create us to live our lives on an island. Rather, he created us for people. And so Jesus was alone so we could be together. And then the same is true for why he suffered, so that we could experience a life that is full of joy, and not a life in bondage to sin, so that we wouldn't have to suffer through sin in this life. We could be freed from that and live in freedom from that. And then your second point was he was alone, he suffered, and
better get it right.
And he
it was your sermon, John.
Come on, John.
My second point.
He was faithful, right?
No, he was alone. He suffered.
He was denied.
He was denied.
Betrayed.
He was betrayed.
Yeah.
Okay, denied and betrayed.
Yes.
Yeah, and so we don't experience betrayal, but we have faithfulness.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was fun for me, from my perspective. The sermon, the point that stuck out the most was Peter's zeal, and how so often we can misuse zeal. And Peter pulled out his sword and cut the soldier's ear off, and Jesus kind of said, hey, like, are you going to take this cup from me? Like, should I not drink of this cup? And man, the way you like explained that was really helpful, but then it was just really convicting, as well as so often our zeal can be misplaced, right?
Yeah.
So often our zeal can be about things that, or we move forward in trying to use our zeal, and it's not what God wants us to do.
Yeah.
So.
Amen. That's so true.
One of my it was a great sermon, man, and I was really, first of all, super thankful, for the godly men that God has placed here to be able to preach the word. So just shout out to what God's doing in y'all's life. But my favorite part, I like the babe part. That was hilarious. But the one that really got to me was your coffee illustration about being careful, and it burns your lip, and it burns your tongue, if you take it in. And then helping us understand what it's like to drink the cup of the wrath of God.
Yeah.
I just really, man, that really put some legs on it for me to think about. We've all done that, or, the thing that came to mind was when you bite into a frozen pizza too fast, like right out of the oven. It's just something different. That's super hot, and it burns the top. It burns the top of your mouth, and you have to wait. It's not like delivery where you can just eat it right away. You have to wait a second. Yeah. That happens to me way more than the coffee one. I've learned, and so that feeling of like, man, it just that little bit of pain that comes from that, and then you were talking about just your sins alone. What that would be way too much to drink.
I know.
And then imagine the sins of all of us sitting there. And then imagine the sins of the state of Virginia. And then imagine the sins of the United States. And then imagine the sins of the world. And then imagine the sins of the world forever, for all of time.
That's crazy. Yeah.
That God put his anger and his wrath and his fury in metaphorically in a cup, and poured that out for Jesus to drink.
It's nuts.
That's crazy.
Man. And then just thinking like if somebody had the biggest thing of burning coffee and I just had to open my mouth and for forever they could just pour it in. I had to endure the type of pain that would come from that. It just puts better, it helps you feel what Jesus endured, as opposed to it being like, yeah, the cross was hard. He had like nails through his hands and stuff, which is obviously painful. The way worst part about it was taking the punishment that we all deserve. It's like the fury of hell. Like whatever hell's like forever for all these people, the amount of wrath that God pours out there, Jesus took all that at one moment for me and for you, for us. So I don't know, man, that illustration has helped me kind of feel it, Obviously I know what Jesus did for us, but to feel the weight of that and what it meant for him to take that wrath in my place so I don't have to. man, that really got to me. I was really challenged and encouraged by it, and so that was one of my main kind of takeaways from the message for sure.
Yeah, it was a good message, man. God. It was faithful to the word.
Thank you.
Well, we have a couple questions.
Yes.
From the peeps on your message.
Questions.
If you are ready.
You guys asked us questions.
To answer your questions.
All right. So the first question that you guys sent in on Instagram is what to think about Halloween nowadays. Is it a sin? Is it wrong? Is it wrong to celebrate? So I'm going to go ahead and Nate, what do you think about that?
John, what do you think? We just pass it around. You know what? I'll throw it out there. Then you guys can come up with some real answers with some time to think. Halloween. So I have a few thoughts on this. There's really good people that have written. I would recommend, I think Ed Stetzer wrote an article about utilizing Halloween for evangelism for your community. You could Google that. I think it's helpful. So a couple of thoughts about Halloween and whether you participate in it. Number one, all my kids are wearing Ninja Turtle outfits and going trick-or-treating. So your pastor is participating in Halloween. I don't think it's a sin to participate now, but you need to do so redemptively, not passively. So you're doing it thinking through what you're doing. And so a couple things just from my perspective, and we can hear from our brothers here as well. I think Halloween helps in two areas. Number one is evangelism. People are coming to your door willingly to meet you. And so now when I'm thinking about my role in the community in which I live to be a representative for Jesus, now I can do that when people are just coming to me, or I get to go walk up to their door. And so making sure I'm intentional to engage in conversation, also providing some of the best candy, being a place people want to go, and making sure to meet the adults, try to get in any conversation, at least like get to know their name, where they live, what's their story to any level, just utilizing every single moment to intentionally meet people, to turn conversations towards Christ, or to at least make them feel more comfortable with me so that we can have conversations in the future. It's an opportunity to know your neighborhood. So if you don't take advantage of that, you're wasting an opportunity. So Halloween presents an opportunity. The second thing I think is important is Halloween's a good reminder that every day is like Halloween. The Bible teaches us in Ephesians 6 to not be ignorant of the devil's schemes, that we're in a spiritual war, that there are powerful beings. The devil's out to steal, kill, and to destroy. This is happening every day. There's evil forces of darkness that are clouding this world, that are leading people away from Jesus towards hell. This is happening in your neighbors, in your neighborhood, at your workplace, at your church, at your school. The world is like Halloween. This is the real picture of the world. And we need to live in the world like that, thinking we're fighting against spiritual forces of darkness. People are held captive by the enemy. And so I think Halloween, as crazy as and as scary as it can be, as like inappropriate as it can be, because like I have 3-year-old kid, 6-year-old kid, a 1-year-old kid. Sometimes I'm like, don't these people know in their house that kids are coming to their house? Like, you're freaking them out. Like, calm down. This is not, you're not the leader of some horror movie or something. Like, I don't know what you're doing. And it's like a little bit like, have some common sense, people, you know. Out. It just have some common sense. Like, what are you? There's no 25-year-olds trick-or-treating. At least there ought not to be at your door. And so let's think a little bit more appropriately. So there's some things about Halloween I absolutely don't like and I think are inappropriate.
Yeah.
But the idea that it gives us a look into the real world in which we live, so that we don't live ignorantly as if like, well, when Halloween's over, everything's, you know, not scary anymore, or the dark forces are not as powerful, is stupid. And so it gives us a good idea, like, this is the world you live in every day. You need to engage that world in the same way. You need to think it through. You need to pray. You need to fight. It's a spiritual war. So I really think Halloween helps us not be so ignorant about the real reality that we live in. So I think those are two really positives, that you can engage in Halloween redemptively. And use it for good and not just passively engage. So
that's good.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I would say too, bringing it, like, kind of shifting it to millennials. I feel like Halloween is like, at least when I was in college and for a lot of our young adults, I imagine if you're Christian in our culture today, there's temptation to like go to a Halloween party where there's alcohol. And to participate, and it's kind of that one day a year where you can throw caution to the wind and put on an outfit that's not appropriate, and all of those things obviously are not of God, not of the Word of God. They're not good. I listened to Matt Chandler. He gave a good answer to this question from 1 Corinthians 8, where Paul is talking about meat being sacrificed to idols, and this is that weaker brother, stronger brother argument, where he says that, hey, meat in and of itself is not bad, like eating meat. And so once it gets to market, it's permissible to buy it and eat it then. But obviously, it's evil to sacrifice meat to false gods. And so there's some unredeemable qualities about Halloween, and then there's some things about Halloween that are good, that are redeemable. Nate mentioned like the community, going door to door. It's an opportunity to gather people. There's an opportunity to evangelize. It's fun dressing up if it's tasteful, and who doesn't like candy? So I would say let's redeem the good attributes of Halloween and let's maximize them for the gospel and for influence and for community. But then let's be mindful to make sure we don't become a stumbling block, as it says in 1 Corinthians 8:9, that we do not want to cause our brothers to stumble. And then in the same tone, if you already have the conviction that you're not supposed to participate in those things for one reason or another, then by all means don't participate. But I like to trick or treat. So
Yeah, I mean, all these conversations reminds me of two texts. You know, one on the lighter side is Philippians 4:8. You know, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely. You know, is there anything that's excellent? Is there anything commendable? Think about those things. And that's the side of the good part about Halloween. What you said, using it redemptively.
Yeah.
And then the other darker side, you have 2 Corinthians 10:3-5, where it's saying, we have these weapons of righteousness, to take every captive thought to obey Christ in light of the darker world that we're going on right now. So you put those two things together, you have those two texts to really be a vessel for truth in this day to day.
Yeah. No, good.
All right, let's move on to our next question. So this is a really good question. All right. So how do you lovingly address to friends why it is wrong to move in together before getting married?
You say, it's wrong.
Run.
It's sin. Yeah, the lovingly part might be the part we should really focus on.
That's a tough situation because you care about them and you want them to know. I imagine if I had a group of friends who were getting ready to move in with each other, man, you just so desperately want them to know.
And I think God's best for them.
Yeah, it's like everybody wants to test drive the car before they buy it, right?
Sure.
You don't want to just make as if we're talking about marriage. But so many things.
Well, the way the world thinks about marriage in terms of you got to know certain things before you're able to actually commit.
Yeah.
And that's not true at all, And you need to know they love the Lord and a few other things, but you don't have to have any idea about certain areas of life.
Absolutely.
To be able to get married to somebody. But this has actually been, and doing young adult ministry for a little while now, one of the most surprising areas for me that I've just been surprised by the amount of young adults who I find out are living together and don't think it's a problem.
Yeah.
Or have to be told, hey, that's probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
And so, this has really been, I think, a point worth pressing in on to talk through. And so I think there's a few things that really come to mind. I'll just mention one of them. And this is true about any activity or relationship when you're thinking about how close can I get without sinning. That's just the wrong question, man. That's just the wrong question. And that'll lead surely to sin. And so the Bible tells us to think totally different about sin. It's flee, 2 Timothy 2:24. It says flee from youthful desires. The same thing in 1 Timothy 6. He's telling Timothy, run away. Don't get close. Don't consider it. Don't think about it. Don't try to, just run. Just run, and run as close as you can to Jesus and righteousness and as far away as you can from sin. And so amongst other reasons that I think John and Taylor will mention, the thing that really is prevalent for me, both with this moving in with somebody, but also any kind of trying to get close to sexual sin but not quite there, is that number one, no human being I've met has the self-control necessary to do that. And number two, it's just the complete opposite of what God has asked us to do, to run from those things as opposed to get close. And so what do you guys think? What are some other reasons amongst that people shouldn't move in together, should wait to get married, and how we would tell our friends to tell them what they would say?
Sure. I think I want to go back to the question, yes, we're going to say all these things why you shouldn't, because you're not putting on the Lord Jesus Christ. You're providing way for you to gratify your desires. But this is such a tough conversation for people to understand.
Yeah.
So I really want to make sure the tone of really genuine care and worry is there.
Yeah.
I just want to read you Galatians 4:19. Just listen to how Paul says this. My little children, for whom I am again in the anguish of childbirth, until Christ is formed in you. So now, that's just a good text to cling to, especially in handling conversations like this. To just make sure, with all the right things you have right now, to give to them, to equip them, and to let them know what's true. Have it. I pray, I hope, it's coming from a foundation of genuine care and painful longing to see them grow.
Yeah.
I'm glad we have a real pastor in the room.
Absolutely. Well, I know
those things, pastor.
No, but that's.
I'm like, no.
But that's the heartbeat of it, and I would say even taking a further step back for the person who actually asked this question, like, man, you want to move forward in approaching your friends, and if your primary concern is that they're getting ready to move in with each other, right? I would be concerned about their salvation, because moving in with each other is a separate issue apart from the deeper issue, which is, hey, we all have sin in our hearts. Sin has separated us from God. And so I would really be concerned about where they're at with their walk with the Lord. And is Jesus and following him in their relationship with Christ, does that exist? Do they know the Lord? And then once you clarify where they're at spiritually, then we move from, okay, if you are saying vocally, I'm a Christian, now let's move from, okay, well, Christians suppose Christ. And when we talk about marriage and we talk about relationship, now we want to transition into how is you moving in with another female, or you moving in with your boyfriend honoring Christ? What do you think you're doing that's good? Because I think it starts with believing that decision of moving in with each other is bad. Nothing's good is going to come from it. You're ruining the relationship. You're not honoring the Lord. You're not showing respect for each other. You're not demonstrating patience. And somebody who's not a Christian isn't going to care about all those things. And so first, I would say through a loving example of modeling Christ-like love, sharing the gospel with those people, that's where it has to start. You have to have a heart change to understand why we are so different than the world, why we wait, why we practice abstinence before marriage. Those are things that are just foreign to somebody who doesn't know Jesus.
Super weird.
Yeah.
And also as a guy, I mean, especially if you're the leader here, if you allow this, you're not really protecting her.
Yeah.
You know, you're crossing boundaries, not just physical, emotionally, spiritually. That's just not proper outside of the context of marriage, and it's just going to harm the relationship later on.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think one of the clear verses on something like this is 1 Thessalonians 5:22, which says to abstain from the appearance of evil. Yeah. So somebody would say, and I've had people tell this, we're not doing anything. And first of all, I say, well, that don't make any sense. You probably shouldn't get married anyways.
People think you are.
Yeah. And secondly, it's like, well, it doesn't matter. Like you're supposed to avoid even the appearance of evil. You're supposed to be so pursuing holiness that people can't bring a charge against you. And so for us to have that desire as the people of God to say, man, I want to be as close to Jesus as possible, as far away from any charge of sin against me, that I just want to avoid the appearance of evil. And so even if you would say, well, we're fine, we're not doing anything, I would say, well, let's keep following the Bible to even avoid the appearance that people would bring that charge against you. So to lovingly do that, and always with these things in terms of like when God says I should do something and I don't want to do it. We just did this at church on Sunday. 1 John 5:3 says his commands are not burdensome. This idea being that John 10:10 says he came to give you abundant life. Like God's commands are for your joy, is to make you happy and fulfilled. In your own plans, Proverbs 14:25, I think. I don't want to get it wrong. It says there's a way that seems right to a man, but in its end it leads to death. And it's like, it seems right to me, and it's actually going to kill me. And God's like, well, let's not do that. Let's lead to life. And so we just have to remember God's rules are for your life. They're not just for his rules and for his glory, but it's for your benefit and your good. So to abstain is actually to satisfy, and it's to fulfill you. And just practically, I mean, I've been married a while now. Taylor's been married a little while. One of the greatest things about getting married is just that now all of a sudden this simple day-to-day life kicks in. Where like living together is fun, and I don't have to feel guilty about it. And it's way more than sex. It's about like we get to eat dinner and not have to like go home at 9 o'clock, and like we just get to like be together. It's one of the great benefits of love, being able to be in that relationship. So you're stealing one of the joys that you can experience once you get married by shortcutting it now and trying to get it now. And so you could experience that without guilt. on the other side, and I don't want that taken away from you. So
yeah, marriage is the only place where that type of intimacy is safe, and so that's what God wants for you. He's not trying to keep something from you. So yeah, I would just say try to explain that in a loving way. All right, so moving on, John, you want to give us a recap of all things Citywide? What things can people come to? You have any updates?
Yes. So leading forward ahead, by New Year, we have Passion.
whoa.
January, when is it again?
January 1
to 3.
3. So
At the Wharf.
At the
Yes.
Wharf.
It's here.
And ticket information.
We got
will be
50
coming up
tickets.
soon.
First come,
50
first
tickets.
serve.
There you go. Wow, just 50.
That's it. It's sold out. So we got 50. It's sold out. Those 50 are your only chance.
Take advantage of it. And lastly, February 1 to 3, Citywide Winter Retreat. Yep, it's that time of the year again. So put that in your calendar. Registration will hopefully be up in about 2 to 3 weeks. And there it is.
We learn about Jesus. People break their arms skiing.
Yes,
Lots
Carl Phillips.
of fun,
Carl.
exciting things happen.
I remember driving Carl for like 2 hours. to
Carl,
hospital.
be careful next time.
Yeah,
that was great.
All right.
Hey, that's it for us today. Follow us. We are Citywide DC. Send us questions. You can text in your questions 571-659-4179. Until next week.
We'll see y'all in the next episode.
Yeah, you can stand up now.
Peace.